sure your cinch is tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, daylight burners. Happy Monday. I hope the week has been treating you well. And, I hope the weather's, it sounds like some folks back in the Midwest may be getting a little bit of rain. That's good to hear. We haven't got much, but one day closer. One day closer. I am trying to rearrange my studio to get stuff a little bit better. I'm always trying to tinker around with this shit, and then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The setup, I don't hate it, but I don't like it, and I'll probably change it, but we'll see. But anyhow, it was getting late, and I needed to record something, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm, as you know, history guy, and history rhymes is a pretty profound quote that I have stumbled across, often attributed to Mark Twain. History doesn't repeat itself, but it surely rhymes, or it often rhymes. One of those, I don't know the direct quote, but and the last one that I did, I remember, if I remember right, is when I compared Ukraine and Ireland, Russia being like Great Britain, and Ireland being like Ukraine. And in particular, this Donbass deal. But anyway, that's kind of neither here nor there. Ukraine's an awful fucking significant country all of a sudden, isn't it? But anyhow, we've got a couple of events that are pretty significant. Couple of them anniversaries and one getting ready to start, and I'm gonna try to tie them all together, and so there's three things that I'm looking at, and Nixon and Watergate, and I've got Trump and the January 6th storming of the Capitol, and then I've got Marvin Heemeyer and the Killdozer. Do they all relate? Not exactly, but I'm going to try to tie them in together as best as I can, because, like I said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, and it was just the anniversary of the Killdozer attacks, or whatever you want to call that whole deal, but we'll get into that here down the road. So, first and foremost, we'll go in chronological order. And I'll see if I can't tie them all in together. We are coming up on the 50th anniversary of the Watergate scandal. And so that'll be on June 17th, it'll be 50 years. So Saturday, June 17th, 1972. In the Watergate complex, a bunch of men, goons, really, either CIA or directly working for the White House. G. Gordon Liddy being kind of the linchpin behind it all. He was the finance counsel for the committee for the re-election of the president, and they broke into the Watergate complex, and they were trying to steal some documents from there. This complex was also housing the Democratic National Committee offices, so That's where they broke into, trying to steal some stuff that got caught. Nixon later went on to win the presidency in 1972. And but among all this, we have a bunch of investigations and media attention and turmoil, and we still have the Vietnam War going on, and it's a great big scandal, and kind of the thing that really set it in motion was kind of typically how anything of real significance gets investigated. Is it was against a political opponent. If it had been against a regular American, like an anti-war activist, probably wouldn't have gathered nearly as much attention. But the fact that they were spying and stealing and sabotaging the Democratic presidential campaign and primaries, particularly Ed Muskie, I believe was his name. Muskie. Something Muskie, I forget. But he was kind of considered the Democrats' best, what would you call it? Best candidate, I guess. The most electable. Because even back then, that was a thing. Electability. And it was actually really entertaining hearing some of the stuff. Like they infiltrated the Democratic campaign, and they were constantly like they would the candidates and Muskie and his staff and everybody, they would set their shoes outside their hotel doors in the morning so they could get them shined, and then these operatives for the Nixon administration would come in and like steal all their shoes and put them in a bus locker across town or something like that. And so like the campaign was constantly running behind, and it looked like it was in a state of turmoil, and so much so like caused the dude to start crying during one of his rallies or speeches or something, one of his campaign stops. And as I say before, if you look at it through the eyes of just sheer comedy, it's pretty goddamn funny. Like I don't know how much they would get away with that today. I don't know. Like the more and more stuff, say like Project Veritas comes out with like those hidden camera, investigative, kind of gonzo journalism as well. But I'm not real sure where I stand on the Project Veritas. I think they do some good stuff at times, but how they get their stuff just seems kind of shitty. So I'm open to debate on that. I just I'm not real sure how I feel about them. But anyways, I'm not sure where I was even headed with that. Anyhow, this whole deal starts the Senate votes unanimously to create a select committee or special committee. So I think it was select committee, and investigate this whole deal. That all led to a huge legal fight between the Senate and the executive branch, with Nixon claiming executive immunity, and later led to the uncovering of the Nixon tapes. Nixon was a paranoid motherfucker, but it's easy for us to say that now when you look at where he was and kind of got to figure out his mindset. We're fighting the Russians, and as I've said before, the Russians are always the best villains. We've been fighting proxy war, or particularly this huge proxy war, but we fought one against the Koreans as well, against Russia via the Koreans. And then we're embroiled in this this really long, bloody, incredibly unpopular war in Vietnam, and Nixon got elected for getting us out of it. And what did he do? He stepped up bombing campaigns and expanded it. Kept it going. And in the meantime, he's trying to put down the anti-war movement. And it's the height of the CIA shenanigans. I mean, the CIA shenanigans from post-World War II, directly post-World War II, leading up to 1972, have led to this Watergate deal. And one of the big mistakes that Nixon had on his hand, or one of the big snafus, mistakes, miscalculations, however you want to call it, was that the FBI started investigating this, and Nixon had maintained that he knew nothing of the Watergate break-in, all that plan. And that's where we had the recording devices. That circling back to the Project Veritas deal. But anyway, Nixon, being the paranoid motherfucker that he was, had recording devices that were all voice activated in different rooms around the White House, and in particular the Oval Office, and recorded everything. Got hours and hours and hours of tapes, and he refused to hand them over. It eventually went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that he had to hand them over. At first, he wasn't going to allow his any of his aides to testify. If it's sounding kind of familiar, we're getting to that. But then Supreme Court ruled you have to turn it over. Executive privilege doesn't mean you just get to not turn over anything. You can't just withhold everything and call it executive privilege. And so they ruled they had to take it over. And then we come across the smoking gun, as they call it. So we'll pop this up on the screen. And so this is history.com, and this is Nixon's smoking gun. Make sure I got my audio correct. I don't know how long this little video is. Here we are.
That's fine. On the investigation, the Democratic break-in thing, we're back in the problem area because the FBI is not under control, because Gray doesn't exactly know how to control it. And their investigation is now leading into some productive areas because they've been able to trace the money, not through the money itself, but through the bank sources, the banker. So, and it goes some directions we don't want it to go. Also, there have been some things like an informant came in off the street to the FBI in Miami with a photographer who has a friend who's a photographer who developed some films for this guy, Parker. And the films had pictures of Democratic National Committee letterhead documents. So there's things like that that are filtering in. Mitchell came up with yesterday, and John Dean analyzed very carefully last night and concurs now with Mitchell's recommendation that the only way to solve this, and we're set up beautifully to do it, and that's the only network that paid any attention to last night was NBC, who did a massive story on the Cuban thing. That the way to handle this now is for us to have Walters call Pat Gray and just say, stay the hell out of this. This is there's business here we don't want you going any further on. That's not an unusual development. And that would take care of doesn't want to. Pat does want to. He doesn't know how to, and he doesn't have any basis for doing it. Given this, he will then have the basis. He'll call Mark Bell in, and the two of them, and Mark Bell wants to cooperate because he's ambitious. They'll call them in and say, we've got a sail across the river to put the hold on this. And that'll fit rather well because the FBI agents who are working the case at this point feel that's what it is. This is CIA.
All right. So basically all that was definitive proof that Nixon knew about the Watergate break-in, and thus also knew about the cover-up, and in fact participated in the cover-up. Pretty aptly named the smoking gun recording. It was after this was released during the. But what was another really unique thing, and really parallels a lot with Nixon and Trump, is Nixon not only had disdain for the media, but actually truly hated them. He just despised the press. And but it was Cold War times. Like they and he was a Cold War president. He was just a product of those times, which doesn't make him right. He was still a real piece of shit. But possibly the most disastrous president of the 20th century. I would say my lifetime, but I wasn't born in 1971 when he took us off the gold standard and kept us on this petrodollar deal that we've got going on now. But that's a discussion for another time. But he hated the media, and he was very paranoid. You're coming off of the Red Scare in the 50s and the McCarthy trials, and which really left a bad taste in American people's mouths. And but the media, led by the Washington Post and Woodward and Bernstein, so Carl Bernstein, Bob Woodward, and their source called Deep Throat, who was mentioned in that smoking gun, Mark Felt, begin rolling out this story. And this was just on the heels of the release of the Pentagon Papers, which was a secret report of the Vietnam that showed how the war was actually going and how it wasn't, looked like there was no end in sight, and how much the government had just lied about the war in Vietnam since the very beginning. And Nixon, of course, tried to stifle that. Came after Daniel Ellsberg, who was a top DOD guy that released the Pentagon Papers. So you just got the height of tomfoolery from the CIA and the war, the entire war machine going on. I mean, whether it was CIA and the Air Force in particular, but the military, which also had all these contractors and the revolving door of lobbyists and corporate America, and it was very much akin to Nazi Germany, minus the eugenics to a lesser degree. There was still some real shady shit that went on along that way, but just the total marriage of big business and big government, where the government didn't want to run the business because they realized they couldn't run it effectively. They knew that the private sector could do that, but they also it also led to monopoly industries and whatnot, but also just some of the blatant disregard for life that that was also embedded in in the Third Reich Nazi Germany was also, I mean, we stole a bunch of that shit from the Nazis to make our economy boom like theirs had, and and to make all these to expand on all the technological advances they had made over the course of the Third Reich. And, it was a weird period in time. But anyway, that all was sparked off June 17th, 1972, the break into the Watergate compound. So that's coming up. And one of the big achievements of this was the putting public trust back in congressional hearings, and they televised these hearings on PBS during primetime hours, and PBS got higher ratings than your popular shows of the day on your three big networks, which is really all you had. I don't know if cable TV was quite a thing just then, but essentially you had ABC, CBS, and NBC, and then you had the public broadcasting. So PBS and PBS was pulling numbers that that the big three networks were pulling. Just watching these hearings and interviewing what do you call you had presidential aides testifying under oath, and you had his aides testifying how that Nixon did know, and just really made him look bad, and exposed a lot of shady shit. And the more you look into it, and the Republican Party helped in that quite a bit. Goldwater was kind of the moment that that kind of swung it towards Nixon accepting defeat and resigning. Well, you look at who came after Nixon. Gerald Ford replaced him. He gets beat by Jimmy Carter, and then here comes Reagan. And Reagan was Goldwater's boy. So, and I didn't look into it too much, but if I remember right, I believe that Nixon and Goldwater were not all that friendly. If I remember right, Nixon was running in the primary against Goldwater. Goldwater won, and then Goldwater got blown the fuck out in the general election, if I remember right. And so I think there was bad blood there. H.W. Bush was jockeying for power. He had a big hand in how it all played out, and it was just a lot of Game of Thrones type shit. Yeah. So anyway, 50 year anniversary coming up, and I said we're going to go in chronological order, but this all leads into these hearings that we've got coming up. And actually, I'm kind of excited to see what the fuck these idiots have been doing since whenever it was last year sometime that they formed this select committee to investigate January 6th and the insurrection, to end all insurrections or something. January 6th attacks. So Donald Trump is center stage here, just like Nixon was center stage at the Watergate deal. However, the main difference being is Donald Trump didn't win the election, Nixon did. And they both, well, and then Nixon didn't get impeached, but Donald Trump did again. I was asking my wife the other day, like, how many times she thought they were going to impeach Donald Trump should he get elected again, which pretty good chance he will if he runs. I don't know how good of a thing that would be. And I don't know who else. Who else the Democrats would throw up. But that's a discussion for later. But anyhow, you have the shit show of all shit shows that was the Donald Trump presidency. And I'm not saying that to demean Trump. I'm just stating facts. Those 4 years were an absolute fucking shit show. And it was a lot of blame to be thrown around there, a lot of blame. And we won't get into a whole lot of it, but the big thing that that started out, well, even before the Trump presidency began, when President-elect Trump was spied on by the FBI in accordance with the Obama administration. And all led into this false claim that essentially Donald Trump was colluding with Vladimir Putin to sway the 2016 election. Tied up his presidency for 3 years, and eventually he gets impeached for holding up an arms deal to Ukraine, asking the current hero of the world, Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, to investigate Hunter Biden, who has some very sketchy business dealings in Ukraine, particularly in fields of business that he has no experience or business being involved in. Anyway, basic peddling influence for cash type deal. At the time, Joe Biden's vice president of the United States, and Hunter's getting cash from all over the world, but Ukraine in particular is kind of a sticking point, being that it's kind of the last little buffer zone between Europe and Russia. And been hotly contested forever. That's a whole thing. We're still going through that. Sure, the Russians are going to lose that war any day now. Counting on it. So maybe we'll get paid for all those weapons that we sent them. Maybe. Anyhow, I would say that's a story for another day. But it all leads in. All kind of has to do like. Ukraine's apparently a very touchy subject in Washington, D.C. Lot of opinions to be had on all sides of that deal. And anyhow, Donald Trump gets impeached. The pandemic hits. He gets continually hammered in the media. His he doesn't help his cause a whole lot. He continues to say a bunch of crazy shit. He speaks off the cuff a lot during the middle of the pandemic. Anyway, Democratic forces in play. Big cooperation between Democratic members of Congress, Democratic officials, deep state officials, big tech officials. Anyway, big giant apparatus. You can read all about it in a Times Magazine article from back in, I don't remember if it was late 2020 or early 2021. Anyhow, maybe I'll try to put a link in the notes. But told how they did it. Donald Trump he goes ahead and does what the Democrats said their biggest fear was, and he doesn't go out without a fight, and he calls shenanigans repeatedly, claims of election fraud, stolen election, and increasingly gets censored from on social media, and he gets more and more vilified in the press, causing him to hate the press even more than he already does. It all boils down to this January 6th certifying of the ballots, and they've honed in on this moment as like his last ditch effort, because he's lost lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. It's went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they refused to take it. And So they hone in on this certifying of the ballots deal on January 6th, which is in the Constitution, and their hope swings on Mike Pence being the one guy who can stop it. He can send the slate of electors back to the states and tell them to send us a new slate of electors, figure out your shit, and send back and whatever the grand plan. And then I think that's when Trump would ascend to the right hand of God, riding a Russian attack dolphin. Just ascends. I don't know if he has a trident. Maybe he has a 3-barreled AR-15. And I'm not sure. That one was just right off the top of my head. Didn't work on that one at all. So I'll work on that image of Trump ascending to the right hand of God. Probably could make some money off that shirt, honestly. Anyhow, it all boils down to January 6th, and he's calling for this big rally. As you know, he gives this big speech, fiery speech, but then he also says protest peacefully. We're going to march peacefully and patriotically or whatever. Shit pops off. Bunch of dummies run into the Capitol, tear some shit up. A bunch of old folks get ushered into the Capitol and take a bunch of pictures. Some dude takes a picture in Nancy Pelosi's chair. I'm sure he farted in that thing. Had to have. I wonder. See, and this all boils down to whether or not January 6th is legally considered an insurrection. If so, then the case being made by this January 6th commission is that Donald Trump should be barred from running for public office again because he engaged in an insurrection against the United States of the government of the United States federal government. And therefore, not allowing him to win the presidency yet again because he will not be allowed on the ballot, which would be something. I don't know what would happen from there. I don't care to speculate right now because we got more stuff to get into. But anyway, the January 6th commission is finally looks like it's wrapping up. They've got to get their shit out there quickly because we got an election in November, and so we're heading into the stretch of the summer, and then we're gonna August. They go into recess, and then it's just full campaign season from there. So nothing will get done. The election will happen. Whatever happens from there, say it goes off without a hitch. People are pissed off. People are happy. And everything continues to move forward as it should. Then you'll have another 3 months before the new Congress takes place for them to get anything done. And we'll see how November shakes out. But politics is weird, man. And life is weird. Life comes at you fast. So the other day it was looking like it was going to be a runaway just slaughter in November. Still might be. And I say slaughter figuratively. We're talking about some hotly charged political issues, and I'm not advocating for anything. I'm just saying it looked like to be a metaphorical bloodbath in November. With the Republicans picking up a ton of seats is what it looked like. And then we had the leak of the Roe versus Wade thing, which was going to happen regardless, but I guess they getting everybody geared up. It was just that was like training camp for protest season. Was the leak. That was your mini cap. That was your OTAs. And now, you're getting all legged up, and summer's here, and then these Supreme Court decisions are coming down the pike, and it's just let's get to protesting, baby. Woo! We got abortion on the docket. We've got gun rights on the docket. And outside of COVID, which I'm going to call a one-off since it was a worldwide pandemic. But outside of that particular phenomenon, and Trump, another, I'm going to call a one-off. But outside of that, for the past, my lifetime, the two biggest wedge issues that they bring up that divides people the most are abortion and gun rights. Healthcare is kind of a, and I won't even say it's a close third. I won't say it's real distant third, but it's like a respectable distance back in third place. Pretty clear first and second on the gold and silver as far as wedge issues go, abortion and gun rights. So the perfect platform for the Democrats to run on. So we'll see, but it was looking really good for Republicans. Now it's looking maybe not quite so much. But either way, the Republicans probably going to take the House back. Probably going to win the Senate, I would guess. I'm not real sure what all states are in play, but I know Nevada is, and I would bet, not a lot, but I would bet that one of but that the Nevada Senate seat turns Republican. I would, like I said, I won't bet a lot, but I would bet on that. The rest of the swing states, I don't fucking know. Pennsylvania probably looks good for Trump, but I don't know. I'm not for Trump, but for the Republicans, I don't know. So this commission's basically, especially if the Republicans take back the House, this commission's probably going to be shut down. And so they got to get their stuff out. And so what they're doing now, starting Thursday, I think it's 8 p.m. Eastern, so 5 Pacific, 6 Mountain Time. This January commission is going to be televising these hearings. So I don't know what channels they're going to be on, but I imagine it's like C-SPAN and CNN, and I imagine all the major news networks will be covering it. If it's on C-SPAN, that's what I'll watch it on, because then I don't have to deal with the bullshit commentary and the mincing of words and constant spin. Just hear it play out as it plays out, and I'll be interested. This one is intriguing to me because I don't know what went on that day. A lot of us, I don't think very many of us do, and I'm really intrigued. I'm not a fan of executive privilege. Most of you know I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump. That being said, I'm no fan of the Democratic Party. I don't rip on them too much because it should just be blatantly obvious right now, like how awful they are. Like it doesn't need to be covered ad nauseum because it's just painfully obvious. But anyway, I voted for Trump this time, and however, though, that deal at the Capitol, I know there was some shenanigans going on with the FBI that we know that for a fact. Like what those shenanigans were, I don't know, but we know they had people involved because I believe it was the FBI director said so under oath that or failed to say they didn't have anybody there, one way or the other. Basically admitted under oath that there were agents there involved one way or the other. I don't know how. But also, there was a bunch of dumb Trump supporters that went in and did some crazy shit. Now we've got a case of what's being called as a act of domestic terrorism. We've got what the other side says, a bunch of political prisoners and a witch hunt. And it all culminates starting Thursday. And Trump has been fighting to and dragging his heels as much as he can to give up any information about that day. Some of it has come out and has been really, really kind of eye-opening. Not really surprising, a little bit shocking. I've noticed here lately, and I've said it some, but I've just come to the realization that I'm very rarely surprised anymore. Often shocked by the scope of things, but very rarely surprised by stuff. And the amount of like access that Fox News, talking heads had to the Trump administration was pretty surprising. Like it was next to a direct line to Trump. I mean, like they had a direct line to Mark Meadows, and yeah. So that part was interesting, and also I want to know if there is a case. Like I'm fine with this. Like we've already spent the money on it, so let's see it. Like I don't want to hear it through the lens of somebody else. I plan on listening to the bulk of this of these hearings and see just what the fuck actually happened, and what they say they have, and then I also want to know if there are any rebuttals that they have after this. But I'm all in favor of it. I think this should this should happen more often. Let's get stuff right out in the open. Let's see it. And yeah, so I'm going to be watching along. I'll probably be boring as shit. I'll probably listen to it more than watch it. But I wonder what they got. I wonder what they got. All right, so final stories in comparison. rolling from January 6th on. Talked about political prisoners. This QAnon shaman. If you guys remember him, he was the dude with the Viking helmet. Which is, I guess, not technically a Viking helmet. It's a depiction of what Americans view as a Viking helmet, but I guess the horns weren't ever on the actual Viking helmet. I don't know. Either way, he had a stupid, probably bought it at a Goodwill or something like that. Had no shirt, was all painted up like fucking Braveheart. Yeah, I think I photoshopped my head on his on his body in one of my Civil War Diaries posts. But anyway, a lot of people might view him as a patriot, even though that dude, I can't remember if he pled guilty or if he was found guilty. But either way, he he broke into the Capitol, and what a ton of people thought that day were patriots. Thought they were doing patriotic stuff. They were taking the country back, whatever that exactly meant. I'm not sure if they knew what they were doing. See, this is what I want to know. Like, did they have a legit plan for transfer of power back to Trump, or was this just like a hissy fit? Because that's kind of what it seemed to me. It was just like one last little fuck you, and then shit got crazy. And so I don't know how much planning there was, but back to this shaman fella. He was held in solitary confinement, like a lot of these folks that got arrested were, and really treated pretty badly. And and you wonder, like, the guy was clearly insane, and he listened to some of his rants, and yeah, it was a lot of QAnon stuff, but the guy was clearly had some mental issues. And like, was that caused by the government? Probably not. Maybe. You never know. Was he part of one of the MK Ultra deals? Possibly. I don't know. Never heard. I've never seen that be raised as a possibility, but I've also never seen that it's not. So who knows? That it could be out there. Probably not. But chances are he's just a crazy guy with some kooky ideas that thought he was doing something and now is in prison, federal prison, for quite some time. And that leads us into the anniversary of Marvin Heemeyer and the Killdozer up in Granby, Colorado. Granby, not Granbury. Granby. This day, I remember vaguely like the day, but I remember listening to this story and like kind of talking. So I just moved up to Loveland, Colorado from Walsh, Colorado, little tiny town. Graduated with 19 people. Move up to Loveland, which is now just essentially a suburb of Denver. But I was working construction there and staying at this house rent free and making really shit money. But hey, I got free house out of it, and and I got to live on my own for a summer before college started. So anyway, I'm living up in Loveland, and we are commuting down to Denver to do this construction job at an apartment complex. And we're on our way back for the day, and there's we hear on the radio, because I don't remember hearing it during work in particular. I don't for some reason I don't remember it during the work day, because we always had a radio going and whatnot. It was always on a classic rock station, but every, once an hour you're going to get the news update, and something like that's going to be on the news. So I don't think it had happened yet, or we just for whatever reason we didn't hear it. But on the way back to Fort Collins or Loveland, we start hearing about this guy's in a tank, and he's just tearing up the town of Granby. And yeah, it was kind of wild. I was gonna play we're gonna come back to Marvin Heemeyer, but I'll tell you about my thoughts. But I was just looking for a video here, and Nixon had a quote about Bohemian Grove that was really, really funny. And Bohemian Grove was like this meeting of a bunch of billionaires. Alex Jones broke into it one time and filmed it. But anyway, here is Richard Nixon's thoughts on it. Maybe.
Let's look at Northern California. You understand? Yeah. You know what's happening in San Francisco just gone. It's clear over. I know that, but it isn't just down in the rowdy part of town now. But the upper class in San Francisco is that way. The Bohemian Grove that I attend on time to time. The Easterners and the others that come there. But it is the most faggy goddamn thing you will ever imagine in San Francisco crowd that goes in. It's just terrible. I mean, I don't want to shake hands with anybody in San Francisco.
Nixon also not a big fan of the gays, and yeah. Anyway, that was I thought that was just a fun little sidebar, but we'll find a little video of the Killdozer in action, because there's some pretty good news footage of it. And here we go. We got We got a couple videos here. Full version. Just tearing through town, and the cops not able to do shit about it. They were throwing bombs at him, not doing anything. They're shooting at him. Nothing you're gonna do. So Marvin Heemeyer, the fella in this bulldozer. Oh, here come. Is he going for the Jeep? Nope, he's going back to the building. Look at that thing. It's a thing of beauty. That's just raw American power. God damn. Here he is. He's going at it again. Still at it. Here he comes again. Over the cars. Yep. Right over him. Oh man, this for everybody just on audio, you should go check this out on YouTube. This thing is just a monster. This guy is just wreaking havoc. These cops are pissed and scared. They don't know what the fuck to do. All right, well, I could watch that all day. And I say that because nobody was killed or injured. And Marvin Heemeyer, he eventually got himself wedged in a basement of, I think it was a Gamble's store. But anyway, he like fell into this basement as he was trying to plow this store down successfully, and he gets wedged in there, and then essentially there's no way out. The way he had this thing going, once he sealed himself in, that was it. He wasn't going to be able to open it back up on his own. It looked like, and it was pretty apparent by the end of it that he had no intention of getting out of there. So he shot himself in the head. And that was the end of the Killdozer. After they they went through his house and everything, they found a bunch of notes and some recordings of himself. And he's kind of become a little bit of a folk hero over this. And so this, pop this back up on the screen. Then this is from allthat'sinteresting.com. It said, in the end, Heemeyer left the world believing that God had asked him to undertake his rampage. Perhaps the most revealing note that he left behind was this one: I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable. Sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things. So there was some more pictures of the aftermath, but that was the inside of this. It was a Komatsu D355A bulldozer. Big, like I don't know how that compares to on the Caterpillar side. So, but I would like D8 is it's a D355A. So I don't know if that'd be like a D8 dozer, cat or whatever. I don't know. Either way, as you saw, it was a big fucking dozer. And Marvin Heemeyer was known about town as just a hell of a welder and a guy that liked to snowmobile. He had a muffler shop, and he had agreed to sell. So Granby is one of those mountain towns that don't have a ton of they're not a Vale, they're not Aspen, they're not Breckenridge. They're more of like a redneck mountain town. It's up, I think it's up over 8,000 feet. And so they're essentially like a working class town that also caters to tourists. So, but it's not a super touristy town. It just kind of like it's something along the way to Rocky Mountain National Park's right up there. And it's closer to Granby than it is to Denver. So, pretty small town, about 2,000 people or so. And, one of those small town, everybody knows everybody. And Marvin Heemeyer, he's known about town. He had a girlfriend at one point. It's been a while since I watched the movie. There's a movie called Tread, and I believe it's on Netflix right now. But it's a documentary on this whole deal. And then there's a book called Killdozer, and I haven't read that. I might have to read that sometime. I've read some of the court documents that. So, anyhow, this guy has a piece of land that he buys at auction. Supposedly, it causes a stink between him and another guy in town that was looking to buy that land because they have a concrete plant right next door. And anyway, Heemeyer buys this property, and supposedly that was like the beginning of his woes with the local government and some of the good old boys club that supposedly runs Granby. So he buys this property, pisses off another guy, and that leads to this fight where he sells he sells part of his property to this concrete plant, and but there's a bunch of negotiations going on, and in the meantime, they start construction on this concrete plant on the other land that they already own. The permit goes through, and Heemeyer is really upset by that because it takes away the access route that he uses as a shortcut between his house and his shop. And he didn't want to spend the money to have to dig to tie into the city sewer system, and there was a whole bunch of things that he wanted to do, and he was just kind of he was tired of red tape and bullshit. And this fight led on for years, and eventually he ends up selling his property, and he uses the money to buy that dozer, and then he starts turning it into this fucking tank. As said before, he was a really, really good welder. Like that was really how he was known, as just being a top-notch welder. Anything. He was kind of a gearhead too, and like he'd always be souping up his snowmobiles and reinforce them and whatever, and just a real handy guy with metal. And he ends up reinforcing this dozer with armor, steel plates. So 2 steel plates, but then he'd pour concrete in between the 2. And he had it set up to where the engine was armored, part of the tracks were armored, the cab was armored, and he essentially just made himself a little tomb. He had 2 video monitors because he couldn't see because of all the armor, but he had cameras outside that were behind 3-inch bulletproof glass. So he could see where the hell he was going when he was tearing down the town of Granby. And so here we go. He purchased the land on his that he built a shop on, and then he agreed to sell the land to a concrete company. And in 2001, the city approved the construction, and they zoned the land right next to Heemeyer to use for that concrete plant, and that was how he had his little shortcut, so he didn't have to go around. And if I remember right, it seemed like it kind of almost made it. It doesn't seem like it was impossible for him to get to his house, from his house to his shop. But it was, I don't remember. It's been long enough that I don't recall. But so 2 years, he fought that thing, and then he finally had enough, and that's when he started. 2003 is when he started building this thing, and he also had a couple gun ports on it. So it said he had armor plates covering most of the cabin, the engine, parts of the tracks, and a video camera was mounted on the exterior for visibility, covered by 3-inch bulletproof plastic. Inside the makeshift cockpit were 2 monitors. There was also fans and an air conditioner to keep him cool. And then he had 3 gun ports, and he had a 50 caliber rifle, a 308 semi-automatic, and a 22 rifle. And I think the 22 was a pistol, actually, 22 long rifle, but I believe that was a handgun. He drove out the wall of his own shop, went through the concrete plant, tore up a bunch of buildings there. Then he went to town hall, to the newspaper office, to a former judge's widow's home, a hardware store, and a couple other homes. And then he went to the gambles, and everybody all the buildings that he tore up were in some way connected to his grievance with this concrete plant and the land sale. 2 hours and 7 minutes. It says damaged 13 buildings, knocking out gas services to the city hall, and the governor considered authorizing the National Guard to attack with Apache helicopters and an anti-tank missile. And if he hadn't got stuck, then that's probably what would have happened. It was over $7 million worth of damage. And yeah, didn't kill anybody, but there were people in a couple of those buildings, and like I believe he plowed into the library, and there was a bunch of kids in there. But because of this, he's kind of become a little bit of a folk hero in the libertarian world, and I enjoy posting the memes because I'm a big fan of people that don't like the government typically, and this one's different. After because I was all kind of gung ho, thinking like, fuck yeah, stick it to the man, and considering how he essentially took out. He took out buildings, didn't really hurt anybody, and he took out his anger on the people that he felt were responsible. And so it wasn't just like a a blind rage where he just everything in sight. Like, I mean, it wasn't far from that, but he did seem to have some sort of method to his madness. And I remember like thinking like, what the shit? Like, you know, I'm here. I am less than a month graduated from high school, and I'm living on my own for the first time. And here some crazy asshole is plowing through a little mountain town with a tank, and it's all over a building permit. And it's like, son of a bitch, man. But I didn't find out later really any of the details till like way later. Like I remember like kind of following up on the on the news, and then they had, you know, just like the evening news snippets about it, and I wasn't ever scared by that deal. I was just like, what the shit, you know, because it was less than 100 miles from where we were. Well, I guess right about 100 miles from where we were working, and yeah, so I mean, it wasn't that far away, and a small town like I'm used to, and I was like, huh, weird deal. And then they're like, guys seem to be possible mental issues, and okay, so it was a crazy guy, weird, and then like you read more into it, and the guy did have seemed to be some legitimate grievances, but the more and more you delve into it, and it does seem like he got boxed out quite a bit, but also he really quite obviously held a hell of a grudge, and I kind of compare him to somebody like the QAnon shaman, or even, yeah, I think that'd be a better case scenario, or a little better comparison than comparing him to Trump. Trump's a little different animal, but I kind of think of this guy like the QAnon shaman. I bet you I would agree with quite a few things that guy has to say. There was a lot of things that the QAnon people had to say that I agreed with. And then they went off on in full loony world, and like we diverged pretty hard, but there was a lot of stuff that I agree with them on. I kind of like a lot of the lefties. I agree with them on a lot of stuff, but then they go way too left. I can't follow them that far. Same way with a lot of the right wingers. I don't know if I want to go that far. and this guy seems to be like a guy that I probably would have had a lot in common with. Would have agreed with him a whole bunch. I would not have agreed with him on this whole deal. If we were talking, I'd just be like, hey, Marv, I don't see what you're trying to do here. Like, I know you're mad. I know you're pretty angry and whatnot, but I'm not real sure what you're trying to accomplish here. Like, town hall. I kind of get it. There's a lot of people in buildings like that where I think where a lot of buildings where I have to do shit, and like it's just, I hate it. And you're like, yeah, I could see it being fun to drive a dozer through that building. However, not like, okay, Marv, like, what do you hope to accomplish by this particular action? Because I don't see, not seeing how you benefit. And like, oh, you can't even get out of that thing once it's sealed up. Oh, like, can you just go drive that thing off a cliff instead? Like, save everybody a bunch of trouble. Like, we get it. You're real pissed off, but you lost that one, man. Like, it's not quite the way to handle things. And the quote, you know, it's It's a pretty profound quote. I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable. Sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things. It's a quote that I 100% agree with. I think that's a very apt, very fitting quote. However, I having a hard time reconciling the part where he became unreasonable. Like, I don't know. It's kind of a cool story. It's like it leads a lot to the folk hero deal because nobody really got hurt. However, he just absolutely destroyed a ton of shit. And a lot of it seemed to be like the part that he was mad about, kind of his own doing, a lot of it. And I don't know. I just I have a little bit of a hard time getting on board with him being like full on kind of anti-hero. But it is a good kind of case study into even local government overreach, and and then it just also another glaring example of pretty apparent mental illness. Like, this concrete plant didn't shoot his wife and his dog and then taunt him over a loudspeaker. They just kind of screwed him out of some property, which, I mean, I know it was his livelihood, but like they didn't come kill anybody. And these people, maybe it was the good old boys club that are all tied up with the local government. I'm sure they are. That's how it works at all levels of government. But, and I'm sure they work to kind of to box him out, because that's how business works sometimes. And he obviously was not happy about it. However, it seems a little bit like not the actions of a sane person, even somebody who's like losing my shit, I might punch somebody, but like that is a slow, sustained process of continually losing your shit day after day, enough to like where you just keep welding and pouring concrete. And man, you could have taken your money and started over somewhere else, or used it to fight legal battles or something, but instead he built a fucking tank. And when men must do unreasonable things, there's usually to an outcome. And like that seemed like his only outcome in mind was to destroy shit and then shoot himself in the head. And I mean, that's what he did, so he accomplished that. But I'm having it's a cool story. Quite a little bit more than meets the eye. But at the end of the day, it was a guy that really, even though he might have got fucked over, really went sour grapes and went way off the deep end. But like I said, it's a cool story, and it's fun. It's fun to watch and go back and watch those videos of him just like cruising around Granby, Colorado, just bulldozing shit. And so therefore, you're like, yeah, kind of root for him just because it made for some entertaining content. But same time, I would imagine those folks that he whose businesses and homes he destroyed probably didn't necessarily deserve that. So I don't know. What are you gonna do? Shit happens. Guys are gonna go crazy sometimes. And in this case, luckily nobody was hurt other than the dude himself. And yeah, pretty apparent that that's kind of how he wanted to go. So anyway, rest in peace, I guess, Marvin Heemeyer. One of the coolest forms of rebellion I've witnessed in my lifetime. Definitely one of the most unique. So I guess props on that. And then also you took the easy route. You don't got to spend up 20 years or whatever the Viking helmet guy got in federal prison, taking it in the ass. So I guess on that part, I would say you're a better folk hero than the QAnon guy, because that guy's just going to get less interesting over time as he as he sits in jail or prison, not jail, prison. So I guess yeah. Happy belated Killdozer Day. The day that will live in infamy, particularly for us Colorado libertarians. And anyways, yeah, interesting times. I would encourage you guys to tune into to at least part of those that January 6th commission. And yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what they dug up and how and what and how it pertains to anything, and if there actually was a coup attempt, like what was, and if there was, like what were the plans behind it? Like, did it make sense? Or is this shit that's just being thrown at the wall, and is it actually what I suspect to be basically a witch hunt? I don't know, but I want to hear it all. I want to see it all, and I'll make a decision for myself. And you guys know, I'll let you know what I think. So anyways, hope you all have a wonderful week. Yeah, summer is on us. We're going to be busy. Make sure if you're in the Garden City, Kansas area, what day is that? June 17th, we'll be at Hidden Trail Brewery, 8 p.m. Central. Be myself, Chauncey Wessner, and Eric Shields. We'll be doing a little storytelling and comedy show. Dirty jokes and cowboy stories, folks. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I've got some, I got some good bits lined up. We got some, going to play a couple games, yeah, I think you're going to like it. So if you're in town, I don't think there's a cover charge. I don't know for sure. But we'll be at Hidden Trail Brewery there in Garden City, Kansas, 8 p.m. Central. Come out, have some fun with us, and yeah, have a good rest of your week. Stay hydrated and move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Burning daylight. Well, life is just a gather, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.